I remember when Mendel Futerfas came the first time to the Rebbe. There was a whole thing about his coming out of Russia, all the things that they did in order to get him out. Lapel, he came out on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, came to England. And I remember when he came, so by the Rebbe's minyan, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Shlomo Kunin was there. And he started singing. I don't know which thing he started singing, whether it's part of his sholem or something. I don't remember what, but he started singing by the Rebbe's minyan because Mendel Futerfas came out from Russia. And it was a big union by everybody because the Rebbe had spoken about him. Yuchva Tovshin Chov Beis, which is 2 years earlier, the Rebbe by Fabrengen spoke about him in Russia. As Vana Yider, Baal Mesiris Nefesh, works on Mikvois, etc., etc. And I remember talking when that Sikha came out, they gave out the Hanochi Bilti Mugi of that Fabrengen. They didn't print the Sikha. That was print typed separately and wasn't given out in public because it was afraid it might fall into the hands of the KGB who were looking at all kinds of things. So it wasn't given out. But Lepel, the Rebbe spoke about him. So he became, besides that, people knew about him from before, from the other Chassidim, but this itself made him into a legend. So when he came out, he gave a mamish, a gvaldik inyan, and by the Rebbe's minyan, Shlomo Kunin was singing a nigun. He came to the Rebbe, Yutes Kislev. There's a whole story there, but which I'm not so familiar. Beprotis, I wasn't involved. With why the Rebbe didn't talk in Yechidus first. But Lepel, when he came to the Fabrengen, Yutes Kislev, at the end of the Fabrengen, he came over to the Rebbe to give a bottle of mashka, like many people would do by the Fabrengens. Now, people thought that Mendel Futerfas came to the Rebbe the first time out of Russia. You could imagine what kind of kiruvim he'll get, what the Rebbe will do. The Rebbe, gemacht nicht wissen. The Rebbe tried to Fabrengen. He said l'chaim. The Rebbe shook his head, said l'chaim. And even when he came over to the Rebbe, he gave the Rebbe the mashke. The Rebbe poured in like he did to everybody. He poured into his own cup, gave him in his cup, told him to distribute it. Was no fuss. But people understood why the Rebbe didn't make this fuss, because there's no question that agents from the KGB were by the Fabrengen to see what the Rebbe is going to do. Because those years, it's clear that there were agents from the Russian government, from the KGB, that used to come to Fabrengens. I remember myself that one Fabrengen, there was a guy who came with a little camera that was called a pen camera. Those years, we're talking about Chav Beis, Chav Gimel, Chav Dalet, Chav Hey, those years, this was a Yikara Metzias, a very expensive little camera that was the size of a pen. And this guy was not taking pictures of the Rebbe. There are people who used to come to Fabrengens that you don't know who they are, and they used to take pictures of the Rebbe. They took pictures. This guy was taking pictures of the crowd. I saw he took pictures of the guns and the Elam looking at all the people. Because this was not so long since they escaped from Russia. And they definitely, and we know from the Rebbe also, that they definitely came. So the Rebbe, that's why probably the Rebbe did not make a fuss of his coming. Then he went to the Yechidus. So I remember after Yechidus, he came out and there was a Fabrengen in some 70 upstairs. I can't say I remember what the Fabrengen was about. I mean, a certain pratim, but the main thing I remember is that he said in Yechidus, he asked the Rebbe for a brocha, he said for Osher Sasonkin, who was still in Russia. And he said, the Rebbe told him as these words, Osher is Sheina Higer. Osher is here already. And the way I heard the story then, that they said no one had any idea that he got a permission to leave. It could be he didn't even get it yet. I don't know. Later I heard that maybe they knew already, but Mendel didn't know. But anyway, the Mendel said that he doesn't understand, but the Rebbe said, Osher is Sheina Higer. Osher is as if he's here already. And Taka, not so very soon after that, he Taka got his permission, or I don't know, maybe he had the permission before, I don't know. He went out of Russia. But this was the way he was niskabel by the Rebbe when he came the first time. And from then he started bringing a lot in 70. And as we know, Mendel, the great Chassid, Mendel Futerfas.